In today's session, my agenda is to give an overview of the California Consumer Privacy Act and how an international organization for standardization / International Electrotechnical Commission, also known as ISO / IEC 27001 aligned information security management system can support compliance. I will then discuss primary risks and incident handling associated with data breaches. Next on the agenda are technical and organizational requirements. After that, I will convey the benefits of deploying an information security management system. Last on the list is improving the effectiveness of an information security management system. The California Consumer Privacy Act, ratified by the state legislators and signed by the governor on June 28, 2018, amended Part 4 of Division 3 of the California Civil Code in January 2020 as a primary law regulating how companies protect California citizenry personal data. As a statute, it is a binding legislative act that applies to companies across the United States that collect California citizenry personal data. The scheduled enforcement date is July 1, 2020. Although the California Consumer Privacy Act requirements have no direct correspondence to information security, the processes and system changes needed for compliance with the California Consumer Privacy Act may affect an enterprise's current security systems, controls, policies, and procedures. Organizations should seize this opportunity to obtain a competitive advantage over less secure enterprises. The California Consumer Privacy Act requirements are specific instructions regarding how personal data is collected, processed, used, and stored. The statute necessitates focusing on known captured data. Regarding security, organizational management should put their efforts on protecting personal data from misuse and unauthorized access throughout every stage of the data lifecycle. As a requirement, organizations can store and process personal data with individuals having the right to opt out in the case of selling or sharing personal data. The California Consumer Privacy Act does not list the legal grounds which businesses can collect and sell personal information. It only provides that for-profit companies must obtain the consent of consumers when they enter a scheme that gives financial incentives for providing personal information. An organization processing personal data needs to facilitate the exercise of data rights by providing a method to request enforcement and processes as well as supporting technology to identify the personal data and to manage and respond to data requests. The right of data portability means the business must provide a copy of the personal data to the data subject in a machine-readable format when technically feasible. The California Consumer Privacy Act states that enterprises must inform customers about their data rights before or at the point of collection. Consumers have the right to transmit data to a third party without hindrance. Data subjects have the right to object to the processing of their data and to not be subject to a decision based solely on the financial gain if the decision affects the consumer. Unlike Article 32 of the General Data Protection Regulation, which addresses the security of processing of personal data, the California Consumer Privacy Act does not mention security other than to provide a cause of action for lawsuits on behalf of consumers for the unauthorized access, exfiltration, theft, or disclosure of their non-encrypted and non-redacted personal information as a result of the failure to implement and maintain reasonable security procedures and practices. In other words, an enterprise must implement and maintain reasonable security procedures and practices to deflect the private right of action created under California Civil Code Section 1798.150. Thus, under the California Consumer Privacy Act, management should retain records to demonstrate data collection occurs lawfully, consumers consented freely when necessary, appropriate management of consumer requests, appropriate security measures to protect personal data and respond to incidents. Notification occurs as required. Therefore, the California Consumer Privacy Act requirements are divisible into 4 broad classifications. Data recovery, which includes the identification and classification of personal data. Data management, including response to the request of data subjects. Data protection, all aspects of securing personal data. Reporting, documentation of activities and conditions regarding personal data. Territorial reach. In section 1798.140C and G, as well as 1798.145A6 of the California Consumer Privacy Act, establishes the territorial scope of the statute to apply to the processing of personal data by organizations established in the United States, regardless of whether or not it occurs within California. California Consumer Privacy Act also applies to processors without a presence in California who offer goods and services to individuals in California. In other words, an organization needs to be California Consumer Privacy Act compliant if it does business within the California market and satisfies at least one of the following thresholds. Has annual gross revenues above $25 million, possesses the personal information of 50,000 or more consumers, households, or devices, or earns more than half of its annual revenue from selling consumers' personal information. Regulatory risk. Just as any other information security decision typically made, it is ultimately all about risk and associated liability. Unfortunately, looking the other way and willfully ignoring the California Consumer Privacy Act will not vanquish the imposed responsibility. Moreover, not responding to notices of alleged non-compliance within 30 days is a California Consumer Privacy Act violation. The penalties for falling foul of the California Consumer Privacy Act statutory damages range from paying between $100 to $750 per California resident and incident, or actual damages, whichever is greater, and any other relief a court deems proper, subject to an option of the California Attorney General's office to prosecute the enterprise instead of allowing filing of civil suits against the enterprise, depending on the severity of the breach. Moreover, a non-compliant company may be fined up to $7,500 for each intentional violation and $2,500 for each unintentional violation. No organization's management team has experienced the effects of calculated California Consumer Privacy Act fines yet. And given the potential fines, no management team should seek the dubious honor of being the first to find out. Achieving compliance. Every organization should already have an information security governance program directed by professionals. If management has not initiated the California Consumer Privacy Act compliance journey in your organization, they may be late in meeting compliance expectations. January 1, 2020 is the enactment date. If management just became aware of the California Consumer Privacy Act mandate, perhaps now is the time to initiate data collection practices and assess systems. If managers are currently reviewing the processes and technology to determine how best to identify the different data types and understand data usage, as well as where special measures need deployment to restrict their use, they are on the right compliance path. An effective governance strategy forms the foundation of an organization's approach to safeguarding personal data privacy under the California Consumer Privacy Act. The California Consumer Privacy Act lays out specific requirements for organizations that control and process sensitive information of individuals who are California citizens, which fall under the umbrella of data protection that consequently impacts information security. Let me repeat that. Which fall under the umbrella of data protection that consequently impacts information security. The ISO/IEC 27000 series empower information security managers with a method for classifying and baselining security, compliant with internationally accepted standards. The ISO/IEC 27001 standards take a risk management approach, enabling an organization to tailor the deployed information security management system to the business environment of the California Consumer Privacy Act. Consequently, through ISO/IEC 27001 standards deployment with a robust information security management system, organizational management can protect against specific threats and vulnerabilities using appropriate controls. Contextually, ISO/IEC 27001 is a comprehensive set of standards that have been in place since 2005 and are reviewed and regularly updated. Although the California Consumer Privacy Act does not mandate certification, ISO/IEC 27001 is a powerful way to demonstrate accountability and compliance with data protection requirements. Thus, the focus in this webinar is protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the personal data of California citizens to help comply with the California Consumer Privacy Act using defined ISO/IEC 27001 standards deployed through an information management system. Data denotes numbers, letters, or symbols for facts, figures, conditions, or other factors that are the primary elements utilized to communicate information. Ignorance of the California Consumer Privacy Act is not a valid exercise and an excuse, and an organization will be stuck with a hefty financial penalty if found non-compliant. Management must make the business decision and select how to address California Consumer Privacy Act compliance. As previously stated, managers and leaders cannot ignore the California Consumer Privacy Act. If your organization recently started pursuing compliance, ensure the focus is on solidifying the Information Security Governance Program, then address California Consumer Privacy Act requirements from that point. Next, figure out what the acceptable level of risk for your organization and make data-driven decisions accordingly. Risk management combines a systematic approach to identifying risk and defining the impact on an enterprise's ability to provide goods and services. Risk management necessitates information security risk awareness by senior officials. A clear understanding of the enterprise's appetite for information security risk, understanding information security compliance requirements, transparency regarding significant organizational information security risk, and embedding responsibilities for internal information security risk management. An enterprise's environment is a significant factor influencing information security risk management. Management's business processes and information security risk assessments should assist in determining organizational control intensity. Let me repeat that. Management's business processes and information security risk assessments should assist in determining organizational control intensity. Therefore, management should assess information asset risk magnitude to ensure adequate resource allocations for threats, opportunities, and vulnerabilities that impact the institution. In this regard, information security risk can affect tangible and intangible assets, including our firm's regulatory, image, reputation, financial instruments, consumer confidence, proprietary data, and competitive advantage. Risk analysis is a technique for performing formal risk assessments and a risk management driver and enabler. Information assets risk analysis is a method for considering threats, opportunities, and vulnerabilities while permitting the means for assessing conceivable adversities that enable determination of necessary information assets protection deployment. Managers should use risk analysis to ensure information assets protection effectiveness, relevancy, efficiency, and responsiveness to threats and opportunities. Additionally, risk analysis can enable information assets protection baseline creation and subsequent comparisons to other identified risks. Last, risk analysis allows identification as well as mitigation of unacceptable variances in the enterprise's risk appetite. Prioritization enables appropriate resource allocation to prevent, avoid, detect, and correct information assets protection potential risks. Once management understands the degree of information asset risk, decisions regarding accepting specific risks or conducting tests to verify a detailed risk measures sufficiency can occur. Furthermore, in descending sequential order, the highest information assets protection risk points should be addressed through appropriate management treatment, reflecting adopted business and control objectives. The data protection requirements enacted through the California Consumer Privacy Act reflect an exemplary information security California Privacy Act governance program with high expected maturity levels. Consequently, management should implement information technology related control self-assessment procedures that are compliant with legal obligations. Then take any findings as an opportunity to assess the risk to personal data and address the risk accordingly. Designing and maintaining appropriate information security risk management requires assessments of implemented information technology general and application controls. As general and application security categories, significant risk to an organization implementing and using information technology are deficient logical access controls and weak network infrastructure security. Furthermore, inappropriate environmental controls, misaligned risk responses, and inadequate physical access controls are significant risks to an organization implementing and using information technology. Lastly, ineffective confidential information lifecycle protection is a significant risk to an organization implementing and using information technology. Manager leaders should sustain accountability. Concerning risk posturing, management must accept as well as own the California Consumer Privacy Act decisions made with all the possible penalty impositions. Owning managerial choices may not always be easy, especially if you do not agree with the California Consumer Privacy Act risk approach to information security. If you are assigned risk accountability, it is your responsibility. Again, owning managerial choices may not always be easy, especially if you do not agree with the California Consumer Privacy Act risk approach to information security. But if you are assigned this accountability, it is your responsibility. Manage the change that comes with the California Consumer Privacy Act expectations for the security team. The California Consumer Privacy Act leaves a lot to the managerial interpretation realm of what is deemed to be reasonably appropriate regarding security. Reasonably appropriate privacy protection is subjective in nature and should mirror the organization's risk appetite. A firm's management typically utilizes validation and monitoring of policies, directives, procedures, standards, and rules as controlled conduits to obtain reasonable assurance that security-related illegal acts are prevented or detected on a timely basis. Performance measurement minimally tracks and monitors information security strategy implementation, information security project completions, information security resource usage, information security process performance, and information security service delivery. If your organization's management is not performing impact assessments, now is a good time to start the practice. If manager leaders adopt risk mitigation of potential breaches for an identified vulnerability, plans should be documented to address the selected item. Privacy risk assessments permit conveying what to do with the risk rating results enabling making informed decisions on what to tackle first. Privacy risk results help executive leadership prioritize efforts for information security preparedness. Data security incidents are adverse events caused by a failure of a protection mechanism or an attempted or threatened breach of these mechanisms. Establishing and sustaining a response team that can react quickly to investigate, contain, and mitigate incidents is a critical element in maintaining data confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Incident response team credibility and proficiency depend to a large extent on the technical skills of its members. Reflective of deploying an adequate information security governance approach, the strategic objectives for undertaking information access protection risk management is to provide a framework that enables future activity to take place in a consistent and controlled manner. In totality, an adopted information access protection risk management framework should provide the structures, methodologies, procedures, and definitions that the enterprise has chosen to utilize for deploying risk management processes. Information technology related data security incidents can occur through physical security breaches or involve coordinated logical and physical attacks. Members of the information security function are often the first to recognize that an information access protection related incident has occurred or is occurring and may perform the initial analysis of the event. Moreover, communicated threats made against an enterprise may not indicate whether logical or physical resources are the target. Nevertheless, the incident response team may need access to facilities during incident handling. Additionally, there may be a need for non-member information security employees during various stages of incident resolution. Therefore, close coordination between physical security, logical security, facilities management, and the incident response team is vital to achieving a holistic information assets protection approach. Managing an appropriate security incident response is typically a crucial business requirement. To enable effective management, a security management information system should correlate data to intended usage to determine security failure repercussions. Considering the primary contingency management objective is providing solutions to understanding of risk and adequate response to an information technology security incident depends on timely, reliable information to assess risk and subsequently apply resources. Simultaneously, management should ensure that reasonably appropriate controls allow meeting notification mandates. Operational and technical requirements. An increasing trend is adopting a holistic approach to managing information security risk. The assigned personnel, define structures, design processes with risk management integration are the critical components of an effective information security management system. An information security management system is a management information system representing the aggregation of technological and organizational resources supporting data processing to reduce information utilized for decision making or problem solving. Organizations typically implement an information security management system with specific objectives designed to inscribe best practice external and internal business solutions. Consequently, organizational employees should be able to rely on their information security management system to reduce the risk of inappropriate responses to industry environmental conditions. Controls legally within an enterprise's information security control system, explicitly or implicitly. Management as a fiduciary agent is responsible and accountable for deploying controls that prevent, deter, detect, and correct privacy breaches mandated by laws and regulations. Correspondingly, calls for fulfilling fiduciary responsibilities through good governance is increasing organizational pressure to demonstrate effective internal control system development. The California Consumer Privacy Act does not require organizations to operate according to a privacy by design and privacy by default model. Building services and products on privacy by design necessitates incorporating security features that assist in protecting data, whether at rest or in transit, across the network, and giving data subjects control over the collection, use, and distribution of sensitive data. The privacy by default is a part of the privacy by design model where no mandated individual action is necessary to protect data subject privacy because the system or application includes the function. Information assets protection as a safeguarding activity, integration should happen with responsibility, authority, and accountability separation to prevent unauthorized access, disclosure, modification, as well as the distribution of data and associated technologies. With safeguarding considered a legally enforceable fiduciary responsibility, information access protection legal compliance management should rate as a high priority information security risk when correlated to regulatory non-compliance repercussions. Inept information access protection legal compliance management can jeopardize an organization's ability to attract stakeholders. Let me repeat that. Inept information access protection legal compliance management can jeopardize an organization's ability to attract stakeholders. Management should immerse information technology controls throughout an organization's information security management system. Once you know where the organization's sensitive data is, management should install the appropriate security controls for forming a protective barrier. Descriptively, structural information technology control envelops all the means utilized by an entity to direct, restrain, govern, and monitor its various activities. Therefore, designing information access protection information technology control objectives reflecting compliance with laws and regulations should be an accepted management responsibility. Furthermore, leveraging technology controls to support compliance should also be an accepted management practice. Moreover, under the California Consumer Privacy Act, management may need to deploy special measures to restrict data usage to only those who obtain special authorization. Copying, masking, and even subsetting may no longer be enough to meet the regulatory requirements. Again, copying, masking, and even subsetting may no longer be enough to meet the regulatory requirements, particularly where the test environments use production data. Considering fiduciary tenets and accepting information security management systems utilizes a top-down approach with legal requirement compliance if the organization's executive management has an established or enforceable fiduciary duty, then there is an expectation that the organizational personnel will adhere to and sustain the defined obligation. Consequently, primary control of employees occurs through policies and procedures that support compliance with laws and regulations. Let's look at policies. Policies prioritize the quality, integrity, and trustworthiness of data, and the confidentiality and privacy of personal data as a business objective. For policies and associated processes to work, engagement must occur. Users disregard or actively circumvent policies that are difficult to understand or seem unreasonable and resist using time-consuming processes having a steep learning curve or drastically changing the way they work. Smooth adoption by the people who work with the data requires policies that make sense and have clear benefits and processes that are user-friendly. The California Consumer Privacy Act related policies and procedures should address the following broad categories. You should get your pen out. Data acquisition, data discovery, data ownership and accountability, data management, data access and usage, data protection, and documentation of the mentioned items. Procedures. Procedures establish methods for accomplishing an activity through specific performance while simultaneously complying with prescribed policies. Before determining procedures, identification and classification of processes should occur to define the impact on control objectives. Management must understand and document operational procedures to create an adequate information security framework. Control procedures document and attempt to enforce management's intentions concerning the organization. Thus, control procedures provide for the safeguarding of an enterprise's assets. Examples of internal controls are pre-numbered source documents, suspense accounts, and cryptography. An organization's information security controls comprise the procedures adopted or devised to furnish management with some degree of comfort regarding the achievement of information asset protection objectives. Manager leaders should address the effectiveness of information security controls for two main reasons. One, weaknesses in information security control procedures can lead to material misstatements in risk information. And two, adequate information security control procedures ensure prevention, detection, or correction by organizational employees of perceived potential threats to sensitive data, where information security controls procedures are considered effective. They facilitate more efficient information security management. Let's look at technology. With information technology deemed indispensable to providing processing efficiencies, communication expediency, and information reliability, organizations should supervise safeguarding information assets through the entity's information security management system. The overall objective of an information security management system is to convey the current status of information asset protection levels commensurate with their value or the risk their compromise poses to the entity. Specifically, designing and maintaining appropriate privacy protection is proportionately linked to implemented information security general and application controls. As general and or application security categories, information security management system should minimally consider logical access controls, network infrastructure security, environmental controls, risk analysis, physical access controls, and the confidential information life cycle for information assets. Operationally, whether automated or manual, active general and application controls that incorporate accepted information asset protection principles are foundationally enabled to aid management in fulfilling fiduciary security responsibilities successfully. Information is data interpretation presented in a form that furnishes value to a recipient. Moreover, distinguishing information technology security from information security is a governance perspective issue. Contextually, information technology security focuses on protecting information technology systems that process and store information, whereas information security is information-centric. Information security theorists suggest management take the expanded view that an organization's information and associated foundational knowledge require adequate protection without regard to how it is handled, processed, transported, or stored. Exemplarily, information security covers all information processes, tangible and intangible, regardless of whether they involve people, technology, or relationships with trading partners, customers, or third parties. As a consequence, information security addresses safeguarding activities throughout the information lifecycle, as well as utilization within the entity's established data protection perimeter. Adopting an information security management system should be a strategic decision for management. An information security management system reflects a holistic approach to managing information security, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information and data. Analyzing the phrase information security management system reflects a holistic approach to managing information security, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information and data. Analyzing the phrase information security management can enhance understanding regarding the ISO/IEC 27001 standards. Consider by definition, a system is a group of interconnected elements with a purpose. Next, reflect on processes, modify system elements to achieve system goals. Finally, accept that security systems acquire and preserve a congruous condition. Hence, extrapolated an information security management system as processes specifically installed to achieve management business objectives through protection measures. Domains, that is, activity spheres, selected for monitoring can use these adaptive system components. The control object is the variable the system's behavior management chose for monitoring. A detector measures what is happening in the variable being controlled. A reference point represents the standards against performance may be measured or matched. A comparator or analyzer is a device for assessing the significance of what is happening, usually by comparing information supplied by the detector with the established reference points. An activator is the decision maker. It evaluates the alternative courses of corrective action available given the nature of the deviation identified and transmitted by the comparator. The output of the activating mechanism is typically the corrective action. Organizational management control measures encompass a desired performance standard, delivery of security data to a security object, comparison of security information to a standard, and an actionable feedback loop implemented for non-standard performance. Security objects should have security objectives, whereby security objectives represent prescribed undertakings designed to ensure appropriate business processes. That is, security objectives are perceptions reflecting management's intention concerning the protection area requiring activity evaluation, deviation notification, with exception status reporting to assist in satisfying business objectives. Groups conceive customs, rules, and prevailing opinions that can convert into laws through a governmental body. Compliance infers acceptance. Expected behavior acceptance requires value or values conformity. Conformance is usually the ultimate goal for most societies, whether laws apply to individual or group behavior. Internationally, nationally, or locally, enforceable laws reflect an official society's behavioral norm, with legal interpretation indicating the corresponding community's sociological needs and trends. As a negative assessment avoidance mechanism, deploying an exceptional information security management system encompassing all information technology resources usually reduces regulatory, reputational, image, financial instruments, consumer confidence, proprietary data, and competitive advantage risk. ISO/IEC 27001 is not only a technical standard for information technology. The benefits of an ISO/IEC 27001 configured information security management system include, get your pens ready again, internationally accepted criteria for complying with information security legal, regulatory, and contractual requirements. Better organizational image because of the certificate issued by a certification body. Proves that senior management are committed to the security of acquired data. Focus on reducing the risk of information security breaches. Provides measurable performance indicators in achieving information security objectives. Optimize operations within the organization because of defined responsibilities and business processes. And build an information security culture within the organization. The annex listing represented in the slide as an A of ISO/IEC 27001 document enables mapping the California Consumer Privacy Act requirements to management system controls. Section 1798.140 C through G and G and 1798.145 A6 address territorial scope. These sections define the reach of the California Consumer Privacy Act, which maps to A.18.1.4, which is compliance with privacy and protection of personally identifiable information. Section 1798.100C addresses security of processing of personal data. The section requirement is that a business shall provide personal information to a consumer only upon receipt of a verifiable consumer request, which maps to A.5.1.1, Policies for Information Security. A.14.1.1, Security Requirements of Information Systems, and A.14.2.5, Secure System Engineering Principles. However, as you can see from the slides, there is a none in this list for addressing notification of security breaches to the supervisory authorities, which should map to A.16.1.3, reporting information security weaknesses. Improving ISO/IEC 27001 defines development and operation normative requirements regarding deployable and deployed information security management systems. Clauses structure requirements for management systems that include objectives targeted by information security controls. The ISO/IEC 27001 2015 version focuses on measuring and evaluating activities and performance of the organization's information security management system. Therefore, ISO/IEC 27001 reflects a security best practices set that permits benchmarking processes that enable governing an organization's information security environment. Risk management should be a continuous effort addressing threats, opportunities, and vulnerabilities. Risk management incorporates a systematic approach to identifying,